Welcome to the Backfield Buzz podcast, a part of the Hive Podcast Network. As always, Cody Wiles, Logan Glover, and Andrew Foster here, keeping you up to date all things NFL. Guys, the season right around the corner. So naturally, you got to go look at previews for your team, right? So we've gone through all the previews of each division, AFC, NFC. Go check those out on the channel. But today, basically, once you do your predictions, naturally, you need to talk about rankings, right? And I mean, it's a hot topic right now.
Oh
It
yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's a hot topic right now. So we're gonna kind of feel this out as we go. Glover and Frosty have both made top tens for QB, running back, wide receiver, tight end. We're doing the offense in this one, and we'll do a defense in another one. So let's start. Do you guys want to go QBs? Do we want to start QBs?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
we
think
can
we
we
start
can we can
quarterback.
start QBs.
Okay, so do you want to go 1 to 10 or 10 to 1? I feel like what's more
I think I like 10-1. I like the suspense a little bit.
And I think it's pretty obvious who the top's a
okay.
little.
I was gonna say I think number one is
You sure?
a given. So
Okay, fair enough. So, I mean, let's start at QB number 10. It's really there's a hodgepodge of guys kind of in this area, right? Anywhere from like you're looking at like 7 to or maybe like 8 or 9 to like 12 or 13. You can interchange a lot of guys. So, Glover, I'll hand the floor to you kind of here. And who do you have at number 10? Let's start there.
So I've got Matt Stafford at number 10. Now, Matt Stafford's my number 10 quarterback. I see you got a little higher than that, which I thought I might have been. I thought I might have. I didn't think you were gonna have Stafford in the top 10. I was trying to like as I was going through, I was like, who's he gonna put where? So, uh, I I don't know. Like I'm trying to compare those. I'm trying to see what I like. But you kind of nailed it there for whiles. The back end of the te top 10, like I think you go 7 to 13, you can really swap here and there. The bottom half is so hard. It was so much harder for me. Like Stafford's so close to like you got Jared Goff, you got Baker Mayfield, like Tua Tagovailoa. We had a whole video on him. Like there's a lot of guys you throw in this range. So nothing here is egregious. Looking at it, like there's nothing crazy egregious between the two lists, in my opinion.
I mean, Frosty's always go check out the NFC South video if you want to hear about Baker Mayfield, how pro Baker Mayfield, but he has B money sneaking into the top 10.
Baker Mayfield, I'm tired of pretending Baker Mayfield's not a top 10 quarterback. I Baker Mayfield is I, I debated putting him higher in this list. I thought about putting Baker as high as 7 or 8 on this list, but
Uh,
I will I put him down. I put him down at 10. Um, Baker Mayfield's top 10 in yards, top 10 in touchdowns. He's started to limit the turnovers now. He led the Bucks to a 9-8 record and a playoff win. It's getting harder and harder to argue against the guy.
like he's great. The reason like I definitely couldn't put him up above anywhere higher than 10. Like if you couldn't argue me Baker Mayfield or Matt Stafford or Justin Herbert. Like that's just a no doubter for me. But the big thing is we got to remember like a year ago, this guy was waived off the Panthers. Like,
He had no business being waived off the Panthers,
but he
so.
was like he
And
got
then he went to LA and
and went,
immediately led a game-winning drive.
but he went 1-3. He lost the next three games after
Yeah,
that. Like, so if he can keep this going, you can put him up there. But like, it's still like this is one good bounce back year. I want to see him like keep it going. This is his career high. This is like his best season ever. You know, most passing yards ever, most touchdowns he's ever had. Second, well, in a full season, it's his second least amount of interceptions he's had in a season. Like this is by far his best mark, but it's just the insane low he hit last year is a little too much for me to like put him in the top 10.
it's not like this blows his other years out of the water though. Like his
No.
first 3 years in Cleveland, 37, 38, and 3,500 yards, 27, 22, and 26 touchdowns. This year he was 4,028.
Yeah,
I think it's reasonable, and the Bucks O line looks like it's getting even better.
it is better.
I'm absolutely gapping on his name right now, but their center that they drafted won the battle, and he looks unbelievable so far in preseason. Tristan Wirfs is blossoming into one of the best tackles in the league. Like
Oh yeah.
the he's getting protection. He has the weapons in Godwin, Evans, Cade Otton's good. Rashad White's one of the best receiving backs in the league. there's just so many reasons that I can see Baker Mayfield succeeding that I like I said, I could see seven might be a little bit ridiculous, but I think Baker could go as high as eight.
Okay, well, I want to take this to a little bit because I've noticed Trevor Lawrence off both of your guys' lists, and just looking at the numbers between a Trevor Lawrence and a Baker Mayfield. I mean, T-Law's gone. He threw for over 4,000 last season, over 4,100 the season prior, 3,600 in 2021. And when I was doing a little prep for this, how do you guys feel about like the last? Do you guys are you just let's provide some context. Are you just going off of last year's performance, or are you guys taking into account like I was looking at more like the last 3 years? Like I was kind of getting a larger sample and not just basing it off last year because for Baker Mayfield, I mean, he threw for over 4,000 and 28 TDs, but 2 years prior to that, like only played in 10 games, over 2,100 yards, then barely over 3,000 a year before that in 2020. So, or sorry, 2021. So, what were your guys' like parameters going into this?
I I think I kind of went this past season, obviously keeping in mind what they've done in over time definitely factors in, but the most important piece is the last season. And it was also a mixture of, where I kind of project them to be in the league for this upcoming year. What am I expecting out of them? Like I'm not projecting, I'm not putting Anthony Richardson into the top 15 or top 10 because I think Anthony Richardson's going to be amazing this year. It's more so I expect him to keep this going. Like I can project that Love will be a top 10 quarterback this year and that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's kind of the same thing I did. The two seasons that I weighted the most were last season and this upcoming season for what I think they're going to do this year. I took into effect the years before that, which is kind of why Baker Mayfield's only at 10, or else I probably would have had him even higher, to be completely honest. But that's like to me, that's the reason why a guy like Tua didn't make my list
Yeah.
because he was unbelievable last year, but I'm not sure if he's going to be able to replicate it. And the years prior, I'm not completely sold on him. We know the injury concerns, so it was kind of a combination of everything for me, but definitely weighted mostly was last season and this coming season.
Right, right. Probably should have said that off the top, kind of what you guys were thinking about it, and to provide a bit more context. So, here's the biggest difference I've noticed is where I believe you guys have Dak Prescott ranked. So, one of the bigger ones, and we have Frosty here, repping the Cowboys hat. So, Logan, I believe you have Dak at that's 8, and then Frosty, you have him at 5. So, uh, Frosty, where are you coming from? Because I feel like you're probably in the more minority, I would say, of fans and where Dak you have Dak. So let's hear it.
I would say I probably am. But he as a quarterback last year, Dak Prescott was the best performing statistically quarterback in the NFL last year. He was third in yards. He led the league in touchdowns, 36 touchdowns to 9 interceptions. He led the Cowboys to a 12-5 record with Brandon Cooks, who's been going downhill for now 2 seasons as their second best receiver, an unknown tight end, really, and Jake Ferguson. Like, yes, having the guy like CeeDee Lamb helps, but their O line's been deteriorating. The run game was absolutely nowhere to be found last year, and Dak put this offense on his back and carried them. Now, the only reason I don't have him at 4 is because of the playoff struggles. I think there's a question between Joe Burrow and Dak Prescott if Joe Burrow isn't healthy again this year. If Joe Burrow plays less than 10 games, I think that's a conversation to be had, but I don't know if you can have it until Dak wins in the playoffs because Joe Burrow has made the Super Bowl already.
Yeah, for me, honestly, the Dak ranking is like that's sort of the one where it was the most that one since it was so tight in that range, I think that is the one where I lean the most on previous years and projecting for next year because Dak was amazing this year, but I know Hurts can lead a team to a Super Bowl, so I had him higher. I think Justin Herbert's talent is arguably like it's probably he's one of the probably the fourth most talented quarterback in the league in my opinion, but he can't we can't see it. We there's no way to actually visualize that because the Chargers are so bad and they're going to be bad. I love Herbert as a quarterback. And the thing with Dak so you look back at last year and he played 12 games and was, the numbers look good for 12 games, but he led the league in interceptions in only 12 games. He threw 15 picks in 12
Yeah.
games. So, and then, you mentioned the playoff struggles, which is also a factor in terms of, do I trust him in the playoffs? I don't know. So I think with me, it was less a knock on Dak and more the fact that I know Hurts can lead a team to a Super Bowl. I like Justin Herbert a lot. I'm big on Justin Herbert. That's just a personal thing. And then I had Stroud at 5 because he was just amazing last year, and I'm projecting him to take another step this next coming season.
I will say, to me, that 2022 season is the outlier.
Yeah.
He did lead the league in interceptions, but if you go back his full season before that, 37 touchdowns to 10 picks. He only played 5 games the year before that, but then you go back to 2019, 30 touchdowns to 11 interceptions. The interceptions blew out of proportion a lot in 2022, and it showed because Dak had a ton of problems. But then he came back this year in 5 more games and threw 6 less interceptions. 15 is still the most interceptions he's ever thrown in his career. I and obviously I'm not as high on Jalen Hurts because I don't even have him in my top 10.
Yeah.
Um, I think I,
Baker Mayfield over Jalen Hurts.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I don't know.
If I'm building a team right now, I'm taking Baker Mayfield over Jalen Hurts.
I can't get behind that. I
Clip
think
it.
yeah.
I I will stand on that.
I can't.
I will stand on that.
It, like
There's a part of me that thinks there's a chance at the end of this year Jalen Hurts is the third best quarterback in the NFC East.
see so here's my thing with Hurts is I obviously I have Joe Burrow ranked above Jalen Hurts, but I'm just as a comparable, Joe Burrow gets the most credit a man will ever receive for his Super Bowl run. He made the Super Bowl one time and lost. And all of a sudden this guy is the Lord and Savior. And again, I got him high on my list. But Jalen Hurts, yes, he had a great team, but he's a year removed from a 14-1 season where he went to the Super Bowl and lost to the Chiefs.
That
And
team also had an unreal defense
it was
too.
crazy. That was a crazy team. But he took the back-to-back winning Super Bowl winning Chiefs to 3 points. Like he played that Kansas City Chiefs defense was no joke. And he put on a show. Like he was amazing in that Super Bowl. Like he would have been the no doubt MVP if the Eagles won the Super Bowl. He broke so many records with so many first times for a quarterback in the Super Bowl. He was amazing. And I'm still like I do think he had a bit of a down year last year, but the Eagles as a whole just like were off. It just wasn't the defenses was off, the coaches was off,
A
the
lot of people suspect he was playing hurt as well.
yeah, I think
Like
that might be the case too. Like it was not a good year. It just was not a good year to count on for any of the Eagles players. I feel a bounce back this year. Kellen Moore, a more just controlled, less chaotic. They lost both their coordinators that following off season. Then it was just a mess. It was a messy season. So I'm counting on a bounce back from Jalen Hurts.
I will also say Jalen Hurts and Dak have the same amount of playoff wins. They
But
both
Hurts,
only have 2 playoff wins.
but Hurts has only played 3 seasons.
Yeah, Dak's made the playoff 5 times.
Yeah, Hurts has
So
made it
Dak's two and
three.
five, Jalen's 2 and 3.
Yeah,
Both of them
like
under 500. Their stats are pretty comparable between the two. Dak averages more yards per game by like 50, but I'm assuming he rushes less.
yeah, Jalen Hurts has had 600, 760, and 784 rushing yards the past few seasons. So, he has the
Yeah,
touchdowns, but it's hard to value the rushing touchdowns because how many of them are tush pushes and how many of them are rushing touchdowns. But he still has a
yeah.
ton.
It'll
I
be
think
I could see that rushing touchdown dipping a ton this year with
Oh
Saquon
yeah,
too.
it should. I think it
Yeah,
should. Also, you're losing Jason Kelsey, which is also a huge factor in the
yeah.
secondary. So it should dip because I think it's better to run Saquon Barkley in that spot. Like it makes more sense. That's part of the reason Hurts has been injury troubled is they're jamming him in a goal line into a bunch of 400-pound men.
You're sending your starting franchise quarterback head first into a pile of guys.
Like
Like there's no reason.
no wonder his shoulders mush. Like it's just it's I get it. Jason Kelsey always talks about it on his podcast about how 93% whatever it is that it's always a converted. Throw the backup in. There's no need to have Jalen
Yeah,
Hurts doing that. Like that's sort of the big thing there is got to keep him healthy. And it was the same conversation we had back in the AFC South, Anthony Richardson. Stop running your star quarterback at the middle of the field. It's bad football. So if the Eagles can keep him healthy, I expect to bounce back from Hurts this season. That's what I'm projecting here with him over Dak. And I'm holding the Super Bowl appearance in a high regard. So that's really where it goes, where it comes down to for me.
Yeah, I would suspect he would take less of those attempts, like especially with Saquon there. Like they went out and got him for a reason, so I think that can signal it. Last thing I want to touch on really quick with the quarterbacks is, I feel like this is a lot of discourse. That is, we all know who number one is at Pat Mahomes, but who's number two? Because there's a legit kind of these. I think these two guys are kind of alone in their own tier at this moment, and
yeah.
you guys are each representing one side. Lamar Jackson at number two for Glover, which I mean, I'm sure there was no bias involved in that ranking. And then Frosty, you have the opposite in Josh Allen, Lamar. So, Glover, go ahead and I don't know. I don't know where a lot of people stand. Maybe I'm willing to be swayed on it because honestly, I'm unsure. So I just make the case honestly for Lamar at two.
So I'm gonna make my case here. So here's the thing that gets thrown in my face every time I start this discussion is Lamar can't win in the playoffs. Josh Allen has made it just as far as Lamar. He's never made it further. He's never done it. Not a once in his life. Lamar is never going to live down the 1 seed year against Tennessee. He's just not going to live it down. The next season, he beat that Tennessee team in the playoffs and was amazing. He put on he was so good. He was so good in that game. And yes, he lost the Bills that next game. He also got concussed and was playing in a blizzard where his kicker, the greatest kicker of all time, missed a kick, which is just it doesn't happen for Tucker in clutch moments. So that's it. And this year he pushed the Chiefs to the brink. Allen's pushed the Chiefs to the brink. Both have, I don't think Allen's got more than one AFC Championship appearance. I think he keeps losing to the Chiefs in the divisional round. Like I they don't have the playoffs aren't as big of a difference as people like to make it out to be. And Lamar's regular seasons blow Allen out of the water. It's not even close. Also, Lamar is so much safer with the football. So much safer. He doesn't turn the ball over anywhere near as often. He's smarter. He doesn't take unnecessary hits that force fumbles. He just gets out of bounds. I'm not like obviously Allen's a better passer. He's got a cannon of an arm. If I want to win a football game, I want Lamar Jackson in my backfield.
So, uh, safer with the football. I don't know if that's true. Josh Allen has four more playoff games played and two less interceptions than Lamar Jackson. Josh Allen has 21-4 touchdown to interception ratio in the playoffs. Lamar Jackson's 6-6.
What about the
Six
rushing?
touchdowns, six interceptions. But
Plus,
I'm fine with my quarter. But Josh Allen is also an elite rusher.
yes, he is. But
Yeah.
Josh Allen can do significantly more things on the football field than Lamar Jackson can. Josh Allen's 500 in the playoffs. He's 5-5. Lamar Jackson's 2-4. I don't see a world where if I'm starting a team right now, I'm still taking Josh Allen.
Uh,
I
to
just
me,
I
yeah.
the I think the turnover issue is a little bit overplayed. I think a lot of his turnovers are arm punts on third down. And
See, yeah.
sorry, yeah, I keep interrupting you. So go ahead,
No,
Cody.
hey, you're going off. I'm trying to interject a little bit because it should be stated like these guys are just they're so different. Like they just when it comes in terms of volume of passes and like like Lamar has never touched 4,000 passing yards in his career, and Josh Allen's done that 4 straight years now. Um, Allen's attempts are also way higher than Lamar's have been. And so it's yes, just naturally. I mean, I'm not sure what other quarterback airs it out more than Josh Allen. Like, just the turnovers are naturally going to be higher. Frosty, I like the way you put it. Like, yeah, he could do more things. Honestly,
In
he
I
can.
So the rushing numbers.
And the rushing numbers aren't that far
Josh,
off.
Josh Allen has 10 more carries in the playoffs and 42 more yards. Really not that much of a difference. Josh Allen also has two more touchdowns. Now he's played the extra 4 games. So I'm not taking that. I'm not going to say he's a better runner than Lamar Jackson is. But I think that has to be said too. Lamar Jackson also has 6 fumbles in the playoffs in 6 games.
And also, just I don't want to keep piling on Lamar, but like even in the regular season, like so this past season, he had 148 attempts for 821 yards, and um, Allen had 30 less attempts at 111, and so with about 300 less yards. But then the last 2 years before that, both within the same amount of attempts and same amount of yards, around 700. So it's not like it's not crazy in the rushing difference. Now, how or Lamar's a more dynamic runner, obviously, but
Yeah.
it's just Allen gets it done just in a different way when it comes to using his feet, and he gets it, and it's not comparable passing.
So there's two points I want to make out on the numbers you're bringing up for the Lamar in the playoffs. So the first one is just obvious. Josh Allen has been throwing to Stephon Diggs every year he's been in the playoffs. Lamar Jackson, his first playoff run, one was a rookie. Well, I'm talking the first real playoff run. It was Hollywood Brown was, okay, but he was still a rookie and he was dropping balls like nobody's business. And then it was
He
Miles
still
Boyd.
has Mark Andrews, though.
Yeah, but when it's only Mark Andrews, it's very easy to shut down when the
It's
other
been pretty much only Stephon Diggs.
he's had Dawson Knox has been a monster in the playoffs. He's had other weapons beyond like I think it was the Tennessee game. It was Miles Boykin, Willie Snead. I think Seth
Hey, Willie
Roberts.
Snead was good.
Willie
I
Snead
like
was
Willie
terrible in
Snead.
that game. Lamar's picks, he threw 2 picks in that game. Both of them bounced off a receiver's hand. Both of them. And the first game he played against LA in the playoffs. He came in midway through that season. He wasn't ready. He was just out of sorts. A rookie. He did not like he should not have been in that game. He should not have been playing at that point. I remember watching that game and going, throw Joe Flacco in. Lamar is out of sorts, but he was a rookie who got thrown in midway through the season and was expected to be a project through the entire season. And yes, he had 3 fumbles that game. That was bad. But you look at the development he's made in the playoffs. He hasn't fumbled since, or he's had 1 fumble since. 1 fumble loss.
He's had a fumble every playoff run. He's had a fumble, at least one.
Oh fuck! I misread it. Okay. Regardless, he hasn't been terrible. He hasn't turned the ball over very much, and he's still won football games. The Tennessee game was terrible. Lamar, I he did everything he could. The Tennessee matched up well. The defense didn't give him any help, and he couldn't get a receiver to catch a ball to save their damn lives. Like it was brutal. It was really brutal. And then the next year came out and he had a fantastic game against Tennessee. I mean, that game was one of the best I've ever watched him play. He was just on fire. And this past year, he was really good. Like the only interception he threw last year in the postseason, it was a bad ball. It was a bad throw. It was also PI. But that's it. It was one throw and it was a desperation play at the end of a game. You needed to make a play, or it was over. That game, I love Zay Flowers. Lamar did what he could. Zay Flowers had that win. He did fumble the ball. That was not Lamar's fault here. So I'm still always gonna take Lamar. He does more in the regular season. He's always been better in the regular season. And in the playoffs, I don't think it's as far off as people make it out to be.
Allen's
I don't think as if you take the record out of the equation and the team around them out of the equation, Lamar Jackson is not as valuable as a football player as Josh Allen.
I think Lamar does so much. Like again, the what Lamar does for your offense and the way you have the team and defense have to game plan for you, it changes things. It allows you to make plays when you have no receivers. It allows you to make your offense as dynamic as possible because teams can't play the same way. They have to always be conscious of the run. And it opens up the middle of the field for Mark
The
Andrews.
same thing can be said about Josh Allen, though.
Yeah, but Josh Allen
It's not the same way.
not
But
designed. It's he just
no,
he gets out.
all right, all right, all right, all right. Time out. Time out.
I'm gonna put on Bill's hat in a minute.
Um, I think it's a good conversation. I mean, clearly from what we're having, it's a I think this year's going to be telling because like Lamar had his best year he's had basically since his MVP, his first MVP. Like it's been a couple years for Lamar, and so he's trended back up. And Allen was a bit more inefficient last year, through most interceptions than he has, less touchdowns than he has in the last couple of years as well. So um, they're kind of both like trending in different directions, like coming off of last year. But I just still think Allen's proved more, just as an overall football player. Like Lamar took a step passing wise that I was impressed with last season. Like he like was really just like making reads that like I haven't seen him make like in previous years. So and again, Allen's built like a tank and doesn't get hurt. Like at this point, I have way more confidence that Allen's going to be the quarter actually playing for my team,
That
just
yeah,
because
that
that's how he's built. But and Lamar did slim down a bit more. So but I know that was like how he was playing in his MVP year. So we'll see. But
I think the big reason why you weren't seeing what you weren't seeing those reads with Lamar in the previous years is the new OC Todd Monken did a great job of working him into the pass and making him pass, and it really changed the way the offense worked. Greg Roman couldn't scheme a passing play to save his life at his end of days. He was I'll never discredit what he did to develop Lamar, but he did his role. He couldn't scheme out passing plays for Lamar. It was a joke. I think another year with that, it's going to be a really interesting look to see another year of development between Lamar and Monken. I think it's a really good duo.
it's a big year for Lamar.
Oh
I'm
yeah.
gonna be honest. Like if the defense, like you guys like say what you want about improving from with or replacing from within, they didn't improve. You can't say they improved.
No.
I think you could say they got worse to some degree. So they need him more than ever. And I mean, if he can come out and play like an MVP again, then like he's got to fully silence it, right? So we'll see. That's a solid quarterback conversation, right? So we might have to speed it up. There's a lot of storylines there, right? It's the
Yeah.
QBs. So, and I think Allen Lamar is an interesting, but I don't know who's touching one soon. I don't know if anybody's touching one soon.
It, that,
It,
it's so annoying, but like, I mean, I think the last time there was an argument for someone else at one would have been the 2019 Lamar year because that was before Mahomes' dominance like
mhm.
went on that that's when before it had the longevity. And it
Yeah.
was purely on this last season was so good for Lamar, so we'll take him for this year. And then quickly Mahomes goes and wins the MVP and or doesn't win the MVP next year, but he wins the Super Bowl. It's like, it's just a yeah, it's a mess. It's fun of being a fan of the team in the AFC. You're never going to be better than Mahomes.
All right, on to the running backs, and honestly, like you guys are pretty similar, like somewhat similar here. I'm trying to see what the biggest difference would be. Or do you guys like Frosty? Do you feel any strong way about what Glover's got, what you got?
I
Any strong thoughts?
I'm I'm not gonna lie. I'm
I
kind
see
of
the
blown
Bijan.
away that you don't have Kyron Williams on your list.
Yeah,
This guy played 12 games last year and was third in the league in rushing yards.
so he's my first cut. He was my 11. I that was one again where I went back to let's see another year. Let's see it again because especially
That's fair.
Oh,
with
well,
running
Kyron
backs,
Williams at 4. Okay, you got Kyron Williams all the way at 4, and Glover's
yeah, like
Yeah.
that.
off the list. Hey, okay, that's a big. I see
He
another
he
one,
averaged
another big
he
one
was
too.
number one in yards per game.
Yeah,
He was ahead of Christian McCaffrey.
he was really good last year. Like there's no doubting that. He was like amazing. I just again, I'll see it. Let's see it again. Let's see if he
That's
can
fair.
keep going because the other guy, like I think, the exception of Bijan, who I have high because he's just as talented as possible, and I think the talent will work itself out now that he doesn't have Arthur Smith calling his plays. I think Zach Robinson's gonna have a field day working Bijan through pass schemes and we're getting that run game going. Like it's gonna be disgusting. I just think he's so talented, and he showed it off last year with the thing. And I guess that's the biggest difference we have is Bijan and Kyron, and they're both in
Yeah.
opposite spots. Like really, they just swapped because my Kyron Williams would be my 11. Like he's right on the outside
Yeah.
in.
Glover,
So
you're a big Saquon guy too. You got
I have a
Saquon all the
big
way
say.
at 2. Frosty
I
has
think
him down towards kind of that second tier of running backs. I mean, it's Christian McCaffrey, and then I mean, honestly, I could see the argument for Saquon. There's kind of that next 4 guys.
Yeah.
I can see the argument for anyone else. Like that's the thing. I can see the argument for Brees Hall. I love Brees Hall. I can see the argument for Jonathan Taylor. He was amazing. But for me, like Saquon, man, since he's been bounced back from his injuries, playing behind that Giants O line and putting up these numbers while you're the offense, like he got Daniel Jones $40 million. That in itself should like get him something like
I should get him sent to jail for
yeah.
robbing the Giants.
New York fans, yeah, they love Saquon. Really, they shouldn't be loving Saquon. He's the reason you've got Daniel Jones right now. But he's going to be insane behind that Eagles front. Like that's going to be unreal. So I'm projecting he's going to be amazing this year. I think he might be maybe he'll be offensive player of the year. I think that might be a position he could be in at this time next year. Like that's the position he's in terms of it depends on what the way the Eagles run the offense, but I think he's going to have a monster year.
That's my main question with him is I don't know if he'll be able to put up the same numbers when he's not the absolute focal point of the offense. I think his efficiency is going to go up because the Eagles O-line is makes the Giants O-line look like a high school team, but you also now have Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown and Devonta Smith who all need the ball.
Yeah.
So I could see his numbers taking a hit, but I could also see his efficiency skyrocketing this season.
Yeah, I think that'll be the big thing. He won't play as many snaps, but he won't get as many touches, but he will definitely be more efficient on those touches. I mean, he averaged 4.5 yards a carry 2 years ago on the Giants O line. That is insane. That is just stupid. Like he's gonna average 5 this year. Like, I mean, the Eagles front got Miles Sanders a bag. It's gotten DeAndre Swift a bag. Like Saquon's going to be crazy, I think.
I will say I'm very happy I don't see DeAndre Swift. I'm very happy. I was really worried that I was gonna see this list and you were gonna have DeAndre Swift at like 4. It's gonna be like, okay.
Actually, like, so I had the list like made for a while back. I was just making fine tunes. I have Swift all the way down at 17, so you can
See,
he's
that
not
might be a
close.
little bit low, but that's like I don't think that's outrageously low.
Well, yeah,
Like,
there's a lot of running backs in that 10 to 21, 22 range. Like there's a lot of guys
mhm.
you could put in that area because the running back position, like it's the elite, and then it's everybody else. You CMC the elite, and then like a bunch of guys who you could replace. Like, I mean, you look at Josh
Yeah,
Jacobs and Aaron Jones. They're swapping teams. I mean, the
yeah.
Raiders just let Jacobs walk to bring Zamir White in. Like, it's a terrible position for turnover. You're forever going to be stuck.
Yeah, yeah, you can that's this was the hardest position I think for me on offense at least because it's it's just replaceable.
Yeah.
Like you saw what Kyron Williams came in and did out of nowhere last year.
It's also so situational. Like running backs,
Yeah.
its position is that you rely on other people the most because you're relying on game planning because you have to be involved in the pass game and you have to get get good run support. But you also have to be in an offense that is balanced because if it's just a run centric offense, like for Derrick Henry, you see it doesn't tend to work as well because they know what's coming. But you also need a good O line. You need a lot of pieces to have a successful season.
But
So that's why
that's why I didn't have Rashad White in there.
yeah,
Rashad
yeah,
White was tied for second in the league in rushing attempts last year, but his efficiency was horrific.
yeah. Like
Like he's a bell cow guy. He's reliable. You know, he's gonna take care of the football. 272 attempts and 3 fumbles. Like, but I just don't think that he's on the level of these other guys that we have up here.
so the other big difference. I don't know if this is what you were about to say, Wiles, but you don't have Nick Chubb on your list.
So
Is that an injury like thing? Is that what that is?
yes, so I think Nick Chubb doesn't get hurt. I think he's the clear 2
Yeah.
in the NFL that we just don't have right now. But
I,
that's the second time now he did this thing, and he did this in college too. This knee just got it imploded on itself.
yeah.
How many times? Like he's an absolute case study just for being able to come back from that at one time and be able to be the absolute dominant force that he was 2 times is that's a lot to ask of a guy's knee, man. Like,
The thing is, like, I don't know if the fact that he's come back from it before should give me more or less faith that he can come back from it this time. Because he came
yeah,
back but he also already had that injury. So he's all like that knee is already screwed.
I mean,
Like
on all accounts, with the type of guy that Chubb is, I think it could be a good thing in the weirdest way. You know what I mean? W- One thing I want to bring up with these running backs because I don't know, I just feel strongly about it weirdly because as a Texans guy, I don't want to see this guy like run all over my team. Um, and it's what he did 2 years ago. Last time he was fully healthy, Jonathan Taylor. Am I the only one that likes Taylor more than Brees Hall? Both of you guys have Taylor below Brees Hall. I Are we just forgetting what this man did in his fully healthy 1,800 yards?
so yeah.
1,800 yards, 20 touchdowns total. He caught nearly 400 out of the backfield as well. I mean, he's only played 18. I mean, if you take his last 2 years, 18 games combined, like that's 1,500 yards between the two of them. Like he's if he's healthy, Brees Hall hasn't even cracked 1,000 yards yet in his career, and people are I feel like just projecting. You got to like Brees Hall isn't number two right now. I don't think you could say
I don't think after, so at the end of last
that's where the
season,
projection comes in.
I don't think Brees Hall was number two. But I think at the end of this year, I think Brees Hall is going to be a number two. I think Brees Hall will be number two. If Jonathan Taylor stays healthy though, I could absolutely see him honestly challenging Christian McCaffrey if McCaffrey gets hurt.
Yeah, like the reason I've got Taylor lower is because he hasn't been fully healthy in 2 years. So it's the same reason why Chubb's lower. It's I'm accounting for the fact that he needs to play a full season first. He needs to go in and play a full season. If he can do that this year, it's going to be scary. Him and Anthony Richardson are going to be dominant. It's going to be a crazy duo. You need to see him healthy. I want to see him like get to a full 17 game season, and then we'll talk about, top two kind of range. That's where he could be. I think that's where his potential is if he's healthy.
I mean, yeah, like Taylor started uh what is that, 9 less games than Brees Hall last season, only had like 200 less yards. Like that's still just I know the O lines are drastically different. I
Yeah.
know that Taylor obviously receives help from that fantastic O line compared to the Jets O line, but I think that's why everyone's liking Brees Hall because New York kind of improved it. Like they made some sneaky moves along the O line, and I don't know, he's gonna get a high target share. But I just wanted to shed some light on Jonathan Taylor because I think people are kind of sleeping on him a little bit, and if he's healthy, I can really see him going far. Okay. Any big thoughts on running back? Anything else you guys want to bring up?
I
What's
think
your top
after
10
that,
running back after this season? Rico Dowdle.
oh my God. No, I think after that we're pretty similar. I think it's all pretty cut and dry after those top tier guys.
All right, sweet. Let's move over to the wide receivers where uh maybe not as fun as a topic because the big one to me is like I think it's undeniable Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill. I've seen you guys both have the same thing as what I would have, Jettas and then Tyreek. It's people can make the argument for Tyreek. I see people who want to make the argument for Tyreek, but to me, I'm not quite there.
He just can't do as much as Jefferson can.
Yeah.
Like I know he's amazing. Does there's no issue with the way he plays football, but he's a speedster, and he's the best speedster we might have ever seen in the NFL. But Jefferson's got better hands. He's got better route running. He's a better deep ball threat. He's a better jump ball threat. He's just better and he's not doing it in an offense that is just tailored for him. He's doing it with no other receivers around him. He's doing it with Nick Mullins and Joshua Dobbs and like this year's gonna be Sam Darnold. Jefferson is just unreal. It is so crazy how good he is.
It's it it's it's crazy to say, but I almost think that if you switched Jefferson and Tyreek's teams, I think Jefferson is a 2,000 yard receiving season. I don't think that's crazy to say.
I think the big thing is Tyreek's numbers would definitely dip in Minnesota
Yeah,
because Miami schemed for the speed. So it'd be interesting to see how Jefferson would fit, but I mean, I'm sure it would work. Like I don't see why Jefferson would struggle playing in Miami, Like I think he'd be fine. So Jefferson's just better at everything except speed. That's really what it is.
So, is it fair to say that those guys are kind of in a tier of their own? That's how I would kind of look at it. I mean, Frosty, we can maybe see what your thoughts, but uh,
I when I first made this list, I had Jefferson, then CeeDee Lamb, then Tyreek Hill, and I changed it. I corrected it because I think there was a little bit of bias there. But I think
I
I
appreciate
do
that.
think that's a clear 1, 2, 3.
Okay, so you would have Lamb in that. You think he's basically,
I
so then
think
you're saying
it's
he has an argument for being the best receiver in the NFL,
so I thought he did. I've become I'm a changed man in the last like 10 hours.
right?
I think those two are in a tier. I think CeeDee Lamb is in a tier of his own, like right below them, but above the next crop of receivers.
And that's reflective in your rankings because I'll go to you, Glover, now because you have Jamar Chase down at 5, and I feel like that's the next big conversation is Chase and Lamb, and then depending on how you want to feel about Amon Ra, but so Frosty has Lamb over Chase, and Glover, you have Chase over Lamb.
I feel like when like Chase was thrown into that grouping, and then he's had a couple unfortunate seasons. He was injured 2 years ago, and then last year he had the Joe Burrow injury, which is just not helpful. You're getting Jake Browning playing the football. It was a tough look for him, and T. Higgins wasn't as effective and was always hurt, so he was in. I think Jamar Chase, I think, is due for a year similar to what he had his rookie year. He hasn't been able to reach that mark since, but the talks after his rookie year were who is the best receiver, Jefferson or Jamar. And he was taken fifth overall for a reason. I have faith that Jamar Chase will be in this level. Like for me, I look at it as Jefferson, Tyreek, and then the next grouping. I think they're in their own tier. And then the next guys, like you can swap Jason Lamb, and it's not crazy to swap Jason Lamb, in my opinion. But I don't think Lamb is as close to Tyreek as I think it's Chase and Lamb are a lot closer together than Tyreek and Lamb. That's the way I look at it. I think that's sort of the way it is. And I think Chase will bounce back. And maybe it's because Chase tears up the Ravens, man. I don't like watching him play. He doesn't he always tears up the Ravens. It's annoying. But he's very similar to Jefferson in the way that he just does everything well. Although I think he's a little faster than Jefferson, but he just doesn't quite have everything else at the same level. But he's I think he's going to have a great year this year with Joe Burrow if he's not, I don't know, being a diva about his contract. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, like I think Chase is up there.
I I just CD led the league in receptions by 14 and almost had 1,800 yards.
He had a crazy
I
year.
I don't know. Jamar Chase, like CD's best year now, blows Jamar Chase out of the water. I want to see, like, I need to see that Jamar Chase can have a year that's on par with this one because he hasn't yet.
Yeah, like I think again, I think it's
He's just never
fair.
received that amount of targets. Like
Yeah,
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 Lamb
because his
had
it,
181 targets last season, which is
yeah,
a
way more than
that's a
Brad.
it's a
it's number one in the
lot.
league. Yeah,
Yeah.
like it, and I like that's reasonable, but and it's gonna be tougher for Chase to do it because he has T Higgins in his offense. CeeDee Lamb doesn't have that ultra wide receiver two that's going to be one of the best wide receiver twos in the NFL year in, year out. So as long as they stay together, it's going to be tough for Chase to be able to get those yards and get that amount of targets.
Yeah, like that's probably the way to look at it. Like it isn't an offense where it's tailored for, you know, just funnel it to this receiver and call it a day. But I just think purely like talent wise, I think Chase is just I just think he's a little more skilled. And I think this year is going to be a big year for him. I don't know what's going to happen with T Higgins. I don't know how he's going to be this year. I don't have a good feeling about it, but I think that with a healthy Joe Burrow, which is always a concern, the run games they're not going to be able to lean on the run game as much with Chase Brown and Zach Moss. It's a solid duo, but it's not Joe Mixon. They're going to be forced to air it out a little more, and I think Jamar Chase is going to benefit.
Here's another one that's interesting to me because um Glover, I tend to agree with you on this next part of AJ Brown over Amon-Ra St. Brown. Um I in my own like little tiers, I guess I would have Jefferson and Tyreek, CD and Chase, and then I would have AJ and Amon Ra, but I would have AJ above St. Brown. So Frosty, you have St. Brown over AJ Brown, and it's by a little bit of a margin. So what just how do you what are your feelings on Amon Ra St. Brown? Because I mean you kind of have him in that next tier up. with like a Jamar
So
Chase and like a CD Lamb.
so I don't think he's significantly better than AJ Brown. I would say Amon-Ra, Jamar Chase, and AJ Brown are all in the same tier. So I wouldn't be upset that AJ Brown's over Amon-Ra. I just
You have Amon-Ra over Jamar Chase.
Yeah, I do. I base the majority of that. They're all really young, other than AJ Brown's not quite as young as the other two, but a lot of it got based off last year and what I think they're going to do this year. Jamar Chase, it, I think as a receiver in and of itself, I think he's probably the more talented receiver than the other two. But he's been hurt and he hasn't had the same production as the other two in the last 2 years now. Part of them because of his injury, part of it because of his quarterback's injury, but he hasn't had the same production. AJ Brown, it's AJ Brown's hard to get a read on for me. So he's he's a dominant physical force, like period, end of story. I just watching I and this could just be Cowboys bias, but watching AJ Brown on the field, it he doesn't change the game the way the other two do. He doesn't draw the attention that Jamar Chase and Amon-Ra do. It's just, and it could be because of the weapons in his offense, having Devonta Smith opposite him as well. But to me, I just don't see him change the game the same way that the other two do.
So yeah, I think what I was gonna say is exactly that. I think that it is the factor of just the way his offense is run that they can't afford to focus AJ Brown because they have a tight end in Dallas Goedert, you got a second receiver in Devonta Smith, you have a run game with good running backs and a good rushing quarterback. But like looking at the numbers, the past 2 seasons for Amon-Ra and AJ Brown, Amon-Ra's had more targets and more receptions in both seasons. 2 years ago, AJ Brown had nearly 400 more yards
Yep.
with less receptions, also had 5 more touchdowns. This past season, it was a lot closer. Amon-Ra had 13 more catches on 6 more targets
Yeah.
or around 60
And
more
had
yards
about like, yeah.
and 3 more touchdowns. But it was so close. And Amon-Ra is doing that in an offense where he is it.
Yeah. Like
Laporta was good. Laporta was great. Laporta had a lot of touchdowns. Laporta had some yards. But there's like Khalif Raymond and yeah, Jameson Williams.
I
Amon-Ra
don't
was it.
I don't think Amon-Ra is it. They almost had 2,000 yard rushers on their team.
They do have the run game. They did have the run
The,
game.
they were a run first team, and
Yeah.
Amon-Ra had 1,500 receiving yards and
it was
10
just that there
touchdowns.
wasn't much target competition in the receiving
Yeah.
core. So it was just a lot
Yeah,
of the time when they were passing, it was him. I think it's an interesting conversation. We'll see if, I mean, this is Amon-Ra took a jump last year. It just needs to be
yeah.
sustained because we've seen AJ Brown put up back-to-back 15, basically 1,500 yard seasons, right?
Mhm.
So if Amon-Ra's kind of in what AJ Brown was in last season. So that's that's it's kind of hard to break that down. And then behind all those guys, you guys both have Devonte Adams, which I think is a fair ranking.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, and then it's do you have thoughts on Devonte?
I was just gonna say it's weird because I think Devonta Adams is so clear cut the seventh best receiver in
Yeah.
football. Like he's his own tier. He's not on the same level as the top of the upper echelon guys anymore, but he's a good amount better than the guys below him.
It's just good old reliable. Like you
It
can always
it
count
is.
on Devontae Adams to be an elite receiver. Like he was the best for years. Tough quarterback play, and he's aging, so the numbers are taking a hit. But yeah, you can't put him over any of the guys above him. And if you put anyone above Devontae that's below him, I'd call you crazy. Like
Yeah.
I mean,
he is really so
yeah.
separated from both levels.
Down year for Devontae last year, only 1,100 yards, 8 touchdowns. But I mean, the 3 years previous to that, like 1,500 yard seasons, like 14 touchdowns, 18 touchdowns. So there's like he was really good. Like, and who's his quarterback's been? Like, I would be interested to see where we would have Devontae Adams if you were to swap him with a AJ
If he
Brown
was
or
just still in Green Bay. If you
even
just
if
had Jordan Love.
give him the amount of targets that Amon-Ra St. Brown gets
You don't get like
or a
targets.
CD Lamb gets, and what I mean, how does Devontae Adams look, right? When he's like in an offense like that. So um then you kind of, again, like you said for us, then there's just kind of the next guys where it's going to be, you're looking at 8 to wherever you want to cut it off, somewhere in the mid-teens, probably you could go there. It's a real big line of guys. So yeah, some of the guys you got in DJ Moore, Mike Evans, Debo Samuel, Garrett Wilson, Puka Nacua is Glover. I want to hear your thoughts on that real quick because that kind of caught me off guard a little bit.
So yeah, it's it's his
Notably,
rookie.
no cup from both of you either.
Yeah, Cup. I love Cup. He's got to stay healthy. He's got to stay on the field. That's really what it is. I mean, but with Puka, I mean, his first year, 1,486 yards. He broke every rookie receiving record imaginable. Like it was just unreal. Yeah, he had tons of targets and he was, the focal point of the offense. The numbers are ridiculous. Like they're crazy numbers for a rookie. So we'll see if he can match it. He's very that ranking is very volatile. You know, a down year for him and he slips really far. But an up year, a good year, and he'll be solidified in that 8 spot if he has another year similar to this one. So I don't think it's crazy to not have him in there. I love him though. I thought he had a great year. And I think if he, matches that again this year or puts up similar numbers, it's no question.
Looking at it, after I made fun of you for not having Kyron Williams in your list and being a top yards getter as a running back, I now am looking at my receiving list and I don't have the number 4 receiving yards leader. And I looking at like when I made the list, I thought that was insane. But so I realized when you said that we made our lists a little bit differently. So the bottom of my list, Mike Evans is he's just putting up like between 1,000 and 1,300 yards every single year. He's going to get you like 8 to 12 touchdowns every single year. I just value that amount of consistency. He's done it for so long that I would still take him over Nakua right now.
Yeah.
But Puka and Garrett Wilson were both two of the guys that I debated on putting in there. And I like in no way I think it's outrageous that both those guys are in there.
Yeah, I think Garrett Wilson's going to have a monster year. I really do. I think I've been high on him since he came out of the draft. And if Aaron Rodgers stays in the field, I think, he's due for 1,400 yards and 10 plus TDs because he's had a revolving door of bums roll through that backfield and he's still put up 1,000 yards and 1,000 yards. Like it's crazy how good he's been.
Yeah, definitely going to be some shifting in these rankings that next year because there's a lot of different things that can happen. DJ Moore sneakily in
Yeah,
the top
shout out
10 for
DJ
both
Moore.
Yeah.
sneakily making it in the top 10. I mean, for us, yeah, it was high as 8. So um there's that. Any big other thoughts on the wide receivers? I feel like we touched them all there.
Yeah, it's pretty cut. Well, pretty cut and dry.
We did.
All right,
All
let's
right.
just move on
Yeah.
to let's
Touched all
just
the receivers. Let's move on to the tight ends.
let's
Oh
let's
God.
let's move on to the tight ends where right off the bat, different number 1 guys.
Wait,
Um and
oh
s-
my.
so let's start there. Anybody want to start? I mean, it's the George Kittle versus I mean, these guys are in a tier of their own, right? Kind of similar to the receivers, you could argue, where there's those top 2 guys. At least that's how I would have it.
Mhm.
Glover, you have a perplexed look on your face.
I'm a little shocked here. I think you know what's shocking me.
Yeah, I know it. I know what's shocking you.
Mark Andrews below Dalton Kincaid?
I think it's a big. I love Dalton Kincaid. He's gonna have a massive year this year,
I do too.
and that's a Mark Andrews is getting older. He's coming off an injury now. Putting all that into effect, I'm a little bit scared of Mark Andrews. That's also why I have TJ Hawkinson down at 6. I don't think, like, skill wise, at the time of his injury, Mark Andrews is a worse tight end than Dalton Kincaid or Sam Laporta. But after his injury, I'm not fully confident that he's going to be able to come back and be the same player that he was beforehand.
I have that confidence. Maybe I just need him so badly. But he like I don't know. Dalton Kincaid, like, I think there's definitely potential for him, but he didn't have like he had a good end of the year, but he only had 600 yards this season. Like it
Oh, yeah,
took
you
him.
don't have Kincaid in your top 10, hey?
I don't know if
Wow.
Kincaid in my top 10. I think by the end of the year he'll be top 10 for sure. But he's played half a season with as a tight end one. He was behind Dawson Knox for the first part of the season. He wasn't getting worked in the offense. Like I think Kincaid will be a top 10 tight end, and I think he's an amazing receiving tight end. The other thing I do want to point out, though, is Mark Andrews is a significantly better blocker in every way imaginable. That's
Yeah.
something to keep in mind with the tight ends. That's why it's not crazy to put Kittle above Kelsey, because Kittle is a better blocker.
Yeah. Yeah. I
But
like that
I
the
don't know
first
about
thing you
that.
questioned isn't Travis Kelce being number
Yes.
two.
That's where I wanted to start.
We
That's
can,
where I
yeah,
was
I
trying to lead a
know.
bit, and then this guy all
We
of a sudden had to
okay,
go to
well,
Mark Andrews. Like
it
the
got
world doesn't
okay.
revolve around the Baltimore Ravens. All right, I
Let's
wanted to start at the top, and you
we'll
took it a
we'll
totally
loop
different
back there.
direction. Which I mean that is the biggest difference in the list. I mean Dalton Kincaid
Yeah.
all the way up at what is that 4 for you, Frosty? Yeah. So and you
Yeah.
have him outside of the top 10. But I wanted to start with the
We'll loop
George Kittle,
back there,
Travis Kelsey because I mean I guess who should make the case for Kittle? I guess you have to make the case for
I
Kittle because right now
I
I
would
would have
I would
Kelsey as number one.
Yeah, I would say that I should probably have to make the case because I think it's the consensus to have Travis Kelce as number one. But
Yeah.
so from my point of view, George Kittle is a better blocker, period, end of story.
yeah.
Without question. George Kittle also had 28 less receptions last year with more yards and more touchdowns on an offense that had significantly more weapons and a significantly worse quarterback. And Travis Kelce, he's getting older. We saw it this year. He was under 1,000 yards this year. Travis Kelce had really comparable stats to Evan Engram. I don't I think to me right now, I think if you just want a pass catching tight end, I think Travis Kelce is the number one tight end. But I think now the gap has been closed enough. Kelsey's aged. Kittle has kept up the production even with less targets. That I think just the massive difference in blocking, I think gives Kittle the edge. I think he's the best all around tight end in football.
I
It's just
I
like before last year, Kelsey was over 1,100 yards in the last 5 years.
Oh
Um,
yeah,
yeah.
it's the thing is they're different. They're different tight ends in different offenses that ask them to do different things, right? Like, Kelsey's, I mean, getting a majority of the targets like in the offense, period. To
Kelsey's
some
also going to be
degree.
35 by the end of this season.
Yeah,
So
and Kittle's crossed over 30 as well. Like Kittle's no spring chicken
Yeah,
either, and he plays a bit more of a physical game as well. Like you can see that in just games missed over the years. Like Kelsey's
Mhm.
been there. Like Kelsey's started 15 games plus, like dating back to 2015,
Kittle's only
right?
missed like I think 4 games over the last 3 seasons.
Yeah, yeah, he had the 1 year in 2020 where
Yeah,
he's missed games, but it's different players, different offenses, but I mean, Kelsey gets it done in the playoffs still. Like we're doing all these receiving numbers, and then Kelsey just goes ahead and has like over a third of his complete offense in 4 games in the playoffs. So that's all that matters.
So yeah, that's what I was going to bring up. But one, I think Kelsey would have the same numbers. Like obviously he did in less reception, but he have the same numbers as Kittle if he played the last game. He sat it to save himself for the playoffs. But the big thing with Kelsey is like the big thing that Kittle has over Kelsey. You mentioned he has less receptions but more yards. Kittle has so much more room for run after the catch, and he's really good at it. But Kelsey's such a focal point for that Chiefs offense at the middle. You can't give him any space, so he never has room to make more run after the catch. Kittle has that room because defenses can't be forced to double team as much on the Niners offense. They're so spread so thin. And then, Kelsey had this down year. And we talked about it in the AFC West preview. He goes into the playoffs and he basically has half his numbers in 4 games. He just went ballistic. And I mean, he didn't have easy matchups. He went in to the AFC Championship and even the Super Bowl. It was the same thing in both games. And I was looking at that game going, man, this is a good matchup against Travis Kelsey. The best safety in the NFL, a top two linebacker in the NFL. That's the recipe to shut him down. He went out and it didn't matter. He went out and had a game. He just dominated. There's just no stopping him when he wants to play on his game. There's no secret that Chiefs had their issues this year in the regular season, but come playoff time, I'm still taking Travis Kelsey. Like until we actually see the dip, like it's not crazy to project a dip this year, but until we see it, I can't put him below one.
I just I again like I agree. I think as a pass catcher, I think it's Kelsey. But overall, as a complete tight end, I think Kittle's closed the gap enough as a receiving tight end that the gap between them as receivers is significantly smaller than the gap between us.
Yeah.
I I don't know. Kelsey when it matters. I want him on my team. If I had to pick, if I needed a guy to win a game, I just want Travis Kelsey.
Yeah, yeah. Very interesting conversation at the top there. Then it gets like you guys touched on the Mark Andrews, like depending on how you feel about Andrews, like I mean, Laporta's year this year would have been the second best year of Andrews' career. And Andrews had his best year. Granted, last time he was healthy for the mo majority, I guess. Going into 3 years ago now. So, uh, depending on how you feel about Laporta, depending on how you feel about Andrews, you can move it around. TJ Hawkinson's going to miss the start of this year, so he's a hard one to rank as well. But uh, overall, you guys are pretty similar, hey? Like, any other strong feelings on these tight ends
I think everything else is pretty close. Like I think
other
yeah,
than
I don't
Dalton
think
Kincaid?
yeah, but King is my 11. He's my 11. And I don't think it's not crazy to have Hawkinson that low because the torn ACL he's missing the start of the year. That's the thing. There's the tight ends are in a weird spot where for years it's been the top four, which is what I have. I have sort of that same top four that has been for the past like 5 years. It feels like, and now we've finally got a new age of tight ends coming in with Kincaid and Laporta and McBride and Pitts. And, I'd like to see Brock Bowers. I think Brock Bowers could be in this conversation by the end of the year. So, like, we're finally seeing that transition of tight ends, and the rankings are going to finally become less consensus.
Yeah, it's going to become much more of a conversation. Like
Yeah.
there's no it's Kelsey, it's Kittle, it's Andrews, it's Hawkinson anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's fun. It's fun. The tight end position it was kind of dying there for a little bit,
Oh,
but
yeah.
now there's been a resurgent. Should have mentioned that. I'm not sure if we mentioned this. No rookies in this, even though we were kind of doing a little projection. We're gonna save. I think is that gonna be the next one? We want to do some offensive rookie of the year and defensive rookie of the year rankings. We can bang that out. Hey.
Well, yeah.
All right. Well, that's what we'll be doing with the rookies, but I mean that puts a cap on the offense. We originally had the idea to do offense and defense in one episode, and that was clearly never going to be the case. We would
No,
be here for a
way
long
too.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that about does it. I noticed Frosty snuck in Jake Ferguson. Don't think I did not see that.
I don't think it's ridiculous. I don't
I'm kind of
think that I would say I will confidently say I will take him over Dallas Goddard.
I won't. I got Ferguson at 12. Like he was in my
Yeah,
conversation. Like
I
I
was gonna
think
say like David Njoku was my 11. Like he's
yeah,
at year 7, he's my 11.
we didn't talk about it much, but you go down 6 to like 13. You can mix and match as you wish. There's a lot of different guys you can throw in there. I mean, I think Cole Kmet's due for a big year. I know you like Dalton Schultz a whiles. I think, Pat Freiermuth is solid. I think
How do you feel
if
about Kyle Pitts?
I think Kyle Pitts is just a freak of nature who needs an offensive
It's
coordinator.
Like, why
he's got
can't
to
Pitts
show it.
make the like?
He's just got to show it, man. Like
Yeah.
at some point it can't you can only put so much on the play caller. He has to force them to give him the ball. And if he wasn't performing well enough, whether it's in run throughs at practice or whether it's in games or whether it's in like joint practices, you can only blame so much on the play caller. And I need to see Kyle Pitts actually get the ball in order to put him any higher.
This will be the year. He's got the coordinator, he's got the coach.
It has to be the year, and
It
it's
has to
making me
be.
like I've had Kyle Pitts the last 2 years of fantasy, okay, and it's just I've drafted him pretty highly in both, and it was just like this is the year, this is the year, and I went into this whole process. We're gonna try to do some fantasy content as well, so keep an eye out for fantasy. We're gonna try to do we might have something planned, something up our sleeve. So, um,
Oh God, no sleeves, but
well, neither do I actually. Neither is up Glover's sleeves.
I got
yeah.
I just like. This has to be the year for Pitts,
yeah.
I think, or else there's going to be real questions about. I mean, that's a fourth overall pick for what he's done is not being great, but he did have a really solid rookie year, and it just looked like things were going to take off from there, but it hasn't quite gone. But we'll see about Pitts. But even like Trey McBride, who we haven't really touched on, like there's I like Trey McBride, I like Dalton Kincaid, those Packers kids, both of them, are some other like just under the radar tight ends. So the position really is it's gotten a lot younger over the last couple of years, and it's been an influx of talent. It's a whole new generation.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's so many more. Like, I mean, you like You mentioned the Packers guys. Chigaquanko is a really underrated name. Kate Otton's been solid. He's young and impressive. Oh my God, I'm Ben Sinnott. He's been making noise. Theo
Yeah.
Johnson's been making noise. Like, I think Davion Sanders is a solid tight end. I can't mention young tight ends not bringing up Isaiah Likely. Like,
I was literally just gonna say,
I'm
how is that not?
proud.
He went
it
like
was
three or
it
four.
was
I'm
in my
proud of
top.
you
I
for
was
not
holding it
putting
back.
him in there because I was so confident that you were going to have Isaiah Likely as a top 10 tight end.
No, I don't have him there. I don't have him. I have him. I think I'm at 16 here. Like, but I think if he was a starter, you can't judge it until he has a full team. Like, he's just never going to be the starter behind Mark Andrews.
Yeah,
But
and
I love him.
it,
I love
even more guys like Dawson Knox, like even the Raiders kids now with Mayer and Bowers, these
him.
guys are
Aaron
both
Bowers.
very hyped up as well. So it's
New age.
exciting times for the tight end position. I tell you what, that's how we're gonna end the backfield buzz with talking about the uprising of tight ends because it's fun.
It's fun.
So I'm this close to bringing up third round pick Cade Stover. Keep or
Okay, we can
Bremen
just end it. Just end it.
All
Or
right, that's
Bremen
it. We're
Jordan.
Just
calling
end it
it.
before that happens.
All right. Well, thank you for watching the Backfield Buzz. If you liked it, drop a like. If you want to see more from us, we're hoping to do some fantasy and got the defensive player rankings. We also got some predictions. Maybe we'll do a whole awards predictions. Maybe we'll have to do that as well.
Go
So
with the rookies. Yeah.
we got a lot of plans here, but the NFL season is next week, fellas. We're going to be getting into the groove of things. So we're going to be pumping out content here. So subscribe if you want to see it all. And as always, thank you for watching and keep it buzzing.